Hello, my name is Crescent Jicol and I'm a lecturer in HCI within the Department of Computer Science at the University of Bath in the UK. In this video I'll be presenting our paper titled Realism and Field of View Affect Presence in VR, but Not the Way You Think. The increased sense of presence afforded by VR head-mounted displays is perhaps the single most important characteristic that distinguishes them from more conventional 2D screens. According to the definition given by Widmer and Zinger in 1998, presence as a construct refers to the user's subjective feeling of actually being in a place or environment, even when they are situated in another. Immersion instead refers to an objective property of the system and to the extent to which it can engage the user's sensory motor channels and perception of the virtual environment. Critically, the level of immersion provided by the system may affect the illusion of being in the virtual world, and the process by which presence is created can be described as a negotiation between the user and the technical or immersive qualities of the system. Over the last 3 decades, there have been considerable improvements in the technical capabilities of commercial VR headsets. However, despite these technological advances, there are certain characteristics such as visual realism and the field of view of the headset that compete for limited computational resources, as designers and VR experiences still need to prioritize certain features over others when designing VR hardware or content for the masses. This raises questions about how technical factors interact with each other to affect presence, and to date there has been little to no systematic combinatorial investigation. From the multitude of technical factors that characterize VR headsets, perhaps the most important for presence and yet computationally taxing are the visual realism of the environment in what concerns software, and the field of view in terms of hardware. Facilitating higher visual realism comes with increased demand for computational power, because more detailed objects have to be rendered on the screen. Furthermore, with increased field of view comes the added cost of a larger, more costly display. Maximizing both realism of the environment and field of view is not yet viable for consumer-grade hardware, and especially on portable head-mounted displays with limited computational power. This is especially relevant for consumers, as cost and portability are significant prohibitive factors that hinder user adoption of VR headsets. It is thus crucial to first understand the actual benefits for user presence of increased visual realism and field of view in order to inform guidelines for both consumer-grade VR hardware engineers and content creators. However, assessing technical factors alone in the absence of human ones would not offer a compelling image of the formation of presence. In addition to the immersive quality of a VR setup, research has shown how human factors can affect the user's presence. The emotions felt by the user and their perceived agency within a virtual environment have been identified as important factors that affect presence, and there are complex interactions that occur during this process. Emotions that rate highly on arousal, for example, in particular fear, appear to hold a special place in the formation of presence, having a strong evolutionary importance. Furthermore, eliciting a sense of fear is at the center of a wide range of VR applications. Fear is not only important in itself, but can change the way other factors affect presence. In a recent study, Jicol et al. Found that the user's sense of agency affected presence in a fear-inducing virtual environment, but not in a happiness-inducing virtual environment. This highlights how the formation of presence is determined by interactions within human factors, and shows that we cannot understand how a technical factor influences presence unless we systematically consider its effects in combination with human factors such as fear and agency. In order to address these research gaps, we posed the following research questions. First of all, we asked, how do visual realism and the field of view affect VR presence? And secondly, how can we describe the formation of VR presence based on technical and human factors? To answer these questions, we collected a new large data set and used it to create a novel structural equation model, including the technical factors, realism, and field of view, and also the human factors, agency, and emotion. When considering emotion, our particular focus is on fear, as it holds significant importance to the VR industry and is shown to have intricate relationships with technical factors, agency, and also presence. In order to systematically investigate the effects of emotions, agency, visual realism, and field of view, we adopted a combinatorial design where each of the design variables had two levels. For emotion and agency, we either induce fear or happiness, each with or without agency. This is identical to Jicol et al. Study. Visual realism was manipulated to either be high or low, while the field of view was either wide or narrow. In order to conduct a structural equation model, we adopted a between participants design which resulted in 16 experimental groups in total. A number of 360 participants were recruited, which was based on a sample size calculation. The same VR environments were used as from Jicol et al. For continuity. The happy environment presented a park during daytime where a friendly dog was present. In the non-agency condition, the user would just observe the dog, while in the agency one, they would interact with it via laser pointer. The fear-inducing environment was the same park but at night, and the dog was replaced by a wolf-looking creature that would attack the participant. In the non-agency condition, they could not do anything to defend themselves, while in the agency one, they had a flashlight that they could shine in the wolf's face to make it go away. We designed a custom Unity toolbox to manipulate technical factors as seen on the side, and this was used to reduce texture resolution and level of detail for lower visual realism conditions, as well as change between a wide 130 degrees field of view and the 90 degrees. In the high visual realism conditions, we improved the graphics further from the original, while in the low visual realism ones, we further decreased them from the original. And here is an example of a happy environment with agency. And this is the same environment, but this time with low technical factors. Observe the poor realism and narrower field of view. And here is the fear-inducing scene with agency and high realism and wide field of view as another example. Our most important contribution is the TAP-FEAR model, a structural equation model that describes how design decisions, technical factors, and human factors as well combine and interact in the formation of presence. Highlighted here are the design factors and their interactions. We found that realism only contributes to presence in the fear scenario, that design decisions to instill fear and agency contribute directly but also interact in the process of determining what users feel. Finally, a wider field of view only contributes to presence when the user is also afforded agency, and this is a direct influence on presence rather than through felt emotions or agency. In conclusion, our results clarify the intricate ways in which human and technical factors can interact in the formation of VR presence. From our TAP-FEAR model, it becomes apparent that designers cannot ignore the influence of human factors when developing VR experiences. More precisely, it is the technical factors that should be adapted according to the specific emotion and level of agency afforded to the user, given the importance of the latter. Ultimately, technical factors need to be optimized due to limitations in computational power and high component cost that still characterize VR head-mounted displays. Our model provides a framework for doing such an optimization while prioritizing the user experience when designing virtual environments meant to elicit fear in particular. The TAP-FEAR model can be interpreted as a structured decision tree, whereby the purpose of a VR application determines its properties and those of the head-mounted display delivering it. In cases where the dominant intended emotion is fear, game designers should prioritize the enhancement of visual realism. In such cases, head-mounted displays with a higher FoV of above 90 degrees threshold should be required only for experiences that afford users agency, such as interactive games or training applications. The TAP-FEAR model illustrates previously unexplored interactions, such as between the field of view and agency, as well as providing a broader overview of how the most prominent human and technical factors come together to form presence. What the model also demonstrates is the necessity to adopt a broader view when investigating user factors or binary relationships between them. TAP-FEAR suggests that VR technology has come a long way since its early days, and improvements to technical features may have reached a point of diminishing returns for presence. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.